Everyone. This is a meeting of the City of Portland Police Accountability Commission Subcommittee on Transition Plan. We're going to call this meeting to order now at 6:34 p.m. on June 26th, 2023. If the Spanish language interpreters, Lizette and Sasha, can please give the information on Spanish language interpretation now, that would be very helpful.
Esta es una junta pública sujeta a las leyes del estado de Oregon y las reglas administrativas de la ciudad de Portland y será grabada. Habrá interpretación al español disponible. Para poder acceder a la función de interpretación, debe oprimir el icono del globo al fondo de su pantalla, luego oprimir la función de interpretación y luego elegir español. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. The city also offers ASL interpretation, which is being provided by Katie and Kevin. Please pin their video feed to see their interpretation throughout the meeting. The closed captioning is turned on in Zoom as another means of assistance, but please note, this is an automatic captioning service and it is not always accurate. The city supports access to meetings of the Police Accountability Commission and can provide other language support as well. Please email in advance of future public meetings, either as a response to a public meeting notice or directly to policeaccountability@portlandoregon.gov to ask for other access assistance, including interpretation into other languages. This meeting is a public meeting subject to City of Portland Administrative Code and Oregon state law and is being recorded. For this meeting, the chat function is enabled for commission members to communicate with each other. Members of the public will be able to ask questions using Zoom's Q&A feature. As the commissioners are presenting and/or discussing things, if attendees have questions, please feel free to submit them through the Q&A. We hope to use this feature to help guide our conversation during the meeting and future meetings agenda topics. We'd like to be clear that not all questions will be answered during the meeting, but if answered, both the question and the answer will be visible to you and will become part of the meeting record. To access this feature, just click on the Q&A icon in the middle of your screen. Now, I would like to turn the meeting over to the co-chairs, please.
Good evening. Hi, everyone. My name is Faith Aiken. I use she, her pronouns. I'm one of the co-chairs for this subcommittee, and tonight I will be sharing the land acknowledgement. This is the land acknowledgement on display at Portland City Hall. We acknowledge that the rivers, lakes, streams, and lands of the lower Willamette River rest upon the occupied territories of the Multnomah, Wasco, Cowlitz, Cathlamet, Clackamas, Chinook, Tualatin, Kalapuya, Molalla, and many other tribes. We recognize the many villages, traditions, cultures, and relationships that existed along the river since time immemorial. We recognize these tribes stewarded these lands and rivers since time immemorial for future generations. We recognize and undertake responsibility for the destruction of the river and land, of traditional food sources, sacred places, and multifaceted ways of life. We acknowledge the economic and social values that enabled the harm to the river, including systemic racism, classism, and other systems of oppression that have perpetuated harm against Black, Indigenous, and immigrant communities along the river. With this acknowledgement, we commit to honoring and learning from the past and working towards a more equitable and sustainable future for the lower Willamette River. We commit to seeking solutions that acknowledge the inequities of past socioeconomic policies and the harm done to people and our relationships to these lands and waters.
Thank you so much, Co-Chair Faith. We're now going to turn to our community agreements. There's 3 pages of these agreements. 2 pages of these agreements and one last page. So I invite us to read them silently, and then I'll ask Corinne to change the pages as we go. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. If you notice that a conversation is coming close to violating a community agreement, please call your fellow commission members in gently and with compassion. If you are called in, please take a moment to consider how you can best participate in the space while still respecting the community agreements and making space for everyone. Do we all commit to following the community agreements for today's meeting and to gently calling in our colleagues and collaborators if needed? May I have jazz hands or a thumbs up, please? Thank you so very much. All right, now I'd like to pass the meeting over to the co-chairs to discuss the timeline.
Thanks, everybody. This is Catherine McDowell. I'm one of the co-chairs of this subcommittee. I use she, her pronouns, and I'll be reviewing the timeline with you all tonight. So as folks know by now, we have split our work into 6 phases. We are now in the 5th phase of work, the broader system. We will work until the end of August of 2023, and then we'll present our proposals to the City Council for their consideration and approval after we finish meeting. Slide 8, please. This slide shows the outcome documents for the transition plan and broader system phase, which is the phase we're in now, based on the agenda and scope approved by the Commission. Now that the PAC has a rough draft of what the new accountability and oversight system will look like, the PAC in this phase will develop a transition plan for how to get from here to there, an understanding of how the process of implementing the new system will change or interact with other police oversight systems and levels of government, and also will name the new oversight board and bureau. Our subcommittee is focused on the first item, developing the transition plan. Slide 9, please. Thank you. This slide is the current project plan for the transition plan and broader system phase of the Police Accountability Commission's work. This slide is for members of the public to understand how the Commission gets from now to the end of this phase. Today's meeting falls in the green box with the purple border located in the middle portion of the slide. So following today, the upcoming meetings of the PAC or the PAC are listed here, and we'd like to highlight just a few. There's a community information session tomorrow midday from 11:30 to 1:30 p.m. over Zoom. This is a really good opportunity for folks to get a broad overview of our draft for a new system and to give input to us to help us revise and update it. This slide also lists our next full commission meeting, which is this Thursday, the 29th. And finally, there is a tentative meeting of this subcommittee tomorrow, June 27th from 6:30 to 9. But if we finish our work tonight, then no meeting will be held tomorrow. So that's our incentive to work efficiently and effectively tonight. So let me just review today's meeting purpose. We will be discussing the updated draft of the transition plan, which is the work product that will come from this subcommittee to the full commission. And we'll start with an overview of the documents by the co-chairs. We'll do our third pass through this document, spending time on the list of remaining issues to resolve and spending the most time on the issues that have either been revised significantly or that we have not spent as much time on in our previous meetings. Where our goal will be to try to finish our work tonight and refer the document on to the full commission. Thanks so much. I'll turn it back over to Dr. Moses now.
All right, so we're now going to move through to discussing the transition plan. Co-chairs, you are going to set the stage for us.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, staff. Staff just put in the chat sort of our rough plan for the evening. At our last subcommittee meeting, we did not get to review section E, so we'll start there. And then we are going to work our way through the document through B through F. And then we'll have a discussion on section A, and we'll get to that later on. So we are going to start in section E.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. So, co-chair, are you going to read this section?
Sure.
And also, in this section, in section E, we're going to have the 5-minute rule. So Corinne is going to let all of us know when we're at 4 minutes of discussion around these topics, these different areas. Also, please raise your hands as usual, as I will be facilitating and using a weighted stack to be able to make sure that people's voices are heard. So be brief, be facilitated, and be constructive. So thank you so much. So let's go ahead and dive in.
Okay, section E. Well, and just so members in attendance know, this is kind of a par for the course. What we do here is read through our document and come to an agreement. So you'll find it riveting that we are co-editing this document together. So I'll read it, and then Dr. Moses will ask for comments, edits, and then consensus. So we're starting in section E of the document, transfer of files and information from current systems. So E1, Portland Police Bureau and other City of Portland transfer of information. A, the Oversight Board will have authority to obtain information to provide an administrative response to allegations of misconduct and to conduct oversight effectively. The methods for obtaining information will include, but will not be limited to, compelling testimony, subpoena power, and access to police records, data, and body camera footage.
Any questions, concerns, or comments? Can we move on? I see jazz hands. We can go to B.
Okay, B. During the transition period, after training on confidentiality, the incoming board members will have access to all information and data related to cases being reviewed by IPR, the Police Review Board, and the Citizen Review Committee.
Any questions, concerns, comments here? Commissioner Dan.
Hi, good evening. This is Dan Handelman. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a member of the commission. I just noticed that we had here cases being reviewed by IPR, the Police Review Board, and the Citizen Review Committee, but it should say cases, just take out the word being, just say cases reviewed by IPR, Police Review Board, because they're going to need information from the older cases as well.
Any other additions, comments, or questions? Is there strong opposition to adding the new text? Is there general agreement for adding the new text? And I need to see visuals if possible. Thank you so much. Very good. Can we move on? Great. C.
Okay, C, necessary members of the transition team after training on confidentiality will have access to information and data related to cases being reviewed by IPR, the PRB, and the CRC only as needed to prepare trainings for incoming board members.
Any comments or questions or concerns on section C? Commissioner Angie.
I think that this is saying the transition team, but it means transition staff, because previously in B, we're saying that, I'm sorry, right. During the transition after, we're saying that board members have access to all information, but here we're saying they only have that the transition team, which includes board members and staff, only have access after training on confidentiality. So I think we should strain that out between the two paragraphs if we're going to have that in there. Or that's just a clarification point. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Angie. Commissioner Dan.
Yeah, actually, I think that B and C should be reversed because the transition team needs access to those documents to train the board members. So maybe C should be B and B should be C. And it's, the necessary members of the transition team would include, if there's more former members of the Citizen Review Committee on the transition team, they already have access to those documents, but just to help train the new members, some people who aren't staff on that team should have access to those documents. So it should be the team, I think, is the appropriate term. Thanks.
Commissioner Angie, are you okay with that explanation? Do you have clarity on that?
Sorry, yes, I was jazz handsing it, but
Oh,
yes,
I'm sorry.
thank you.
Okay, yeah, I didn't see that. I apologize. Thank you. All right, Co-Chair Faith, and do you want to switch these to be in switch the order? Yes, you do. I see an affirmative. So staff, if you could switch the order, that would be nice. And then staff, I have a question. Is this brand new text?
Yes, so all the blue text is brand new, proposed by co-chairs between meetings, and then the green text is proposed text from Commissioner Dan, but you could do it all together if you'd like.
Okay.
And then if I could just ask Commissioner Dan, the change that you proposed to what is now C, to remove the word being, is that applicable to what is now B as well?
Well, that's a very good catch. Yes, thank you.
Okay, so any other questions, concerns, or comments on this text on B? Is there a strong opposition to adding this text? All of B. Is there general agreement to adding this text? I see jazz hands. Thank you so much. Can we move on? Yes. Okay, so we have both B and C approved. Let staff catch up. Into E.
Okay, E2. Transfer of information from the Police Accountability Commission. A, all information and data collected by the PAC will be transferred to the transition team upon creation of the transition team. All information and data collected by the PAC and the transition team will be transferred to the Oversight Board upon creation of the Oversight Board. In the event the transition team and the Oversight Board exist concurrently, all information and data collected by the transition team will be made available to the Oversight Board on an ongoing basis.
Any questions, concerns, or comments on section A? Can we move on? Thank you.
B, the PAC values and goals, PAC bylaws, and PAC community engagement framework will be given to the Oversight Board members as model documents to assist in creation of the Oversight Board's internal process documents. E3, I'm going to keep reading. I'm going to read this whole
Okay.
thing.
Okay.
E3, information from IPR, PRB, and the CRC. A, during the transition period, IPR, the Police Review Board, and the Citizen Review Committee will transfer to the Oversight Bureau. Did we already do this? No, I'm just being confused. Sorry. Will transfer to the Oversight Bureau all information and data from previous complaints, period. The transfer will follow all applicable local, state, and federal laws and policies regarding privacy and transparency. B, if the transfer of information and data from these agencies cannot be completed in the transition period, the Oversight Bureau will work with the IPR, PRB, and/or CRC to create a plan to transfer information and data within a reasonable timeframe, not to exceed 1 additional year.
Are there any questions, concerns, or comments? Commissioner Charlie, and then Commissioner Dan.
Yes, just curious, on A, do you want to spell out IPR2 or make the other two acronyms
That's
in the first sentence?
Mm-hmm. So you're recommending to spell out IPR?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, staff. Commissioner Dan.
And just to be clear, Co-Chair Aiken, this is about transferring information to the Bureau, the staff, and the other one was about transferring it to the board. Okay, you got it. Thanks.
Any other questions, concerns? Okay, so section B, can we move on? I see jazz hands, yes. All right, sections A. Section A, is there strong opposition to adding this new text? Is there general agreement for adding this new text? I see agreement, thank you. Section B. Is there a strong opposition to adding this new text? Is there general agreement to adding this new text? I see agreement. Thank you so much. We can move on to the next section when staff are ready. Beautiful. F.
So I think based on staff's comments, we're going back to B.
B, very
Think.
good.
Which I can read when we get there.
Excellent.
Okay, section B is transition team and budget access. B1 is the heading general, and subsection A states the initial implementation of the transition plan will be managed by a transition team that includes staff and volunteers. Subsection B, the transition team shall assist in initial oversight board staff and member training and initial organizational tasks. The transition team shall, as outlined below, coordinate city council appointment of the initial 33 oversight board members and alternates so that appointments may be made promptly upon creation of the oversight board.
Thank you, co-chair. Any questions, concerns, or comments in sections A or B? May I move on? Beautiful. Thank you.
Okay, subsection C, many of the necessary tasks for board implementation can begin prior to the beginning of the transition period. These tasks may include developing internal city capacity for the recruitment process, drafting board application, and ensuring legal compliance. 2, coordination among bureaus. 3, creating necessary city infrastructure for future board members, having IT permissions, protocols, and files in place, close paren.
Thank you so much. Any comments, questions, or concerns in section C? Is there strong opposition to adding this new text in area 2? Is there general agreement to adding this new text to area 2? I see agreement. Thank you so much. And I move on. Thank you.
Okay, subsection D, the transition team shall be selected during the Department of Justice and judicial review of changes to the settlement agreement and proposed city code related to the implementation of the oversight board. Subsection E, the city attorney's office shall ensure that members of the transition team are present for any mediation with the U.S. Department of Justice related to the implementation of the oversight board. The Bureau of Human Resources shall ensure that members of the transition team are present for any negotiation and mediation with collective bargaining units related to the implementation of the oversight board. These responsibilities will be transferred to the director upon their hiring and completion of training, and board members upon their appointment and completion of training.
Thank you so much. Any questions, concerns, or comments on these two sections? Commissioner Dan.
Yes, well, I understand one of our goals is to make this a lean document, and my proposal here was to say the transition team shall be selected during the second part of the pre-transition phase described in section A1B, instead of just writing out all those words that explain what that second part of the phase is. So I'm hoping that is agreeable to help shorten this document up.
So have you suggested that language, Commissioner Dan?
Yeah, it's right there in the comment on the side.
Oh, it is. Okay, very good. Is there strong opposition to adding the language suggested by Commissioner Dan in this section of D? Somebody else raised their hand. Sorry. Need to see who that is.
Sorry, it's me. It's Faith.
I'm sorry, Faith. I lost my.
That's okay.
I lost my way.
I don't actually have strong opposition. I think I just wanted to note, Dan, the only thought we had was just as this is at the beginning of the document, it helps as an orientation of like when this time period is. But I don't feel I don't feel strongly about shortening it. I'm just explaining the reasoning of potentially keeping it. So yeah, we can talk. I hear you. I don't have strong opposition. I think for clarification, my suggestion is to leave it, but.
Other thoughts? from subcommittee members? So I will ask the question then, is there strong opposition to adding this new text? Is there general agreement to adding this new text? And I don't have a good view, and can we all do that again, pretty please? Thank you. Okay. Tim? Is that an agreement? Yes, thank you so much. And Faith, I didn't see your hand, and so that's fine. I'd like to also ask about any comments or questions on section E? Can we move on? Very good, thank you.
Okay, subsection F. The transition team shall provide a set of draft bylaws based on the PACs to allow the new board to function as soon as it is established. Once the board has approved the director's job description, they shall adopt these documents as desired or create new ones.
Any comments or questions or concerns on section F? Can we move on? Thank you. B2, transition
Okay.
staff.
All right, subsection A, during the pre-transition period, the city council or its designee shall create a transition staff of at least 3 people to facilitate the early stages of the transition period prior to a director being hired. This transition staff shall be managed by a City of Portland employee referred to as the transition manager, who is preferably someone familiar with the work of the Police Accountability Commission, PAC. Subsection B, transition staff positions may be transferred to the Oversight Board upon the hiring of the director at the director's discretion. Remaining transition staff positions will sunset after the appointment and training of the director.
Any comments, questions, or concerns in sections A or B? Commissioner Charlie.
Hello. I know this is minor, but it just keeps bugging me, the word sunset. It just feels like not familiar, not a common word, not something I looked it up and nothing in the definition helped me really, because it just feels temporary. I'm just wondering if y'all might consider something like positions conclude or discontinue.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Charlie. Co-Chair Faith.
Thanks, Charlie. I like that. I think conclude makes sense.
Very good.
Thank you. And wherever else it is. Yeah.
Commissioner Catherine, Co-Chair Catherine.
Thank you. I just had a question whether since we defined what part of the pre-transition period we were referring to in the previous section, whether we needed to make that. I mean, this is maybe a question for Commissioner Dan, who suggested that question of whether we need to define the stages, since we're defining the pre-transition period in stages, whether we need to indicate what stage we're talking about here in section A.
All right, I'm gonna go to Commissioner Tim, and then I'll go to Commissioner Dan.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm Tim Pitts. I use he, him pronouns. So so I understand. So we're basically saying that once the director is hired, they can decide to keep the transition team or not? Is that the way this is seen? Because if it is that because we certainly need, I would think, the transition team in position or in place longer than just once the director is there and trained, because the director could be hired and trained in like maybe month 3 or 4 or 5 of this 12-month period. And it seems there would still be a lot left to do. But if it's that they would still be there, then that's great.
Thank you, Commissioner Tim. We're gonna hold on that question. We're gonna go back to Commissioner Dan. Addressing the previous question. Sorry about that.
Yeah, so Co-Chair McDowell, here's the issue with trying to be too definitive here, that we are asking the council to pass during part A of the pre-transition period to pass a resolution that says there's going to be a staff and there's going to be a transition team and there's going to be all this stuff. It may be good if those staff can be created in that during that first 60 days while they're working on the stuff to send to the DOJ, so that the transition staff can get started on its work in what is part B of pre-transition. So we can either leave it vague, or I would recommend suggesting that happen during what is defined as part A of pre-transition in section A. Thanks.
Okay, hang on there, Co-Chair Faith. Co-Chair Catherine, your response to Commissioner Dan?
I didn't quite understand what Commissioner Dan's suggestion would be. If you could just maybe read it into the current language.
Okay, well, here's, it would be helpful for me if we could scroll up to section A, where would these, the pre-transition phase is defined, and then I can be a little bit more clear. So, oh, there it is. So look there, it's A, council initial review, and these things happen, including council passing a resolution. And then under B, if you scroll down a little bit more, it says the transition team will be selected in that part under B. But it feels to me like if we're going to try to get the staff, set up, and then have the volunteers pick too, that team maybe might want to select them during part A.
Yes.
So what I was saying is either we should be more specific, as you suggested, and say in A, or we should just leave it vague and say that it should be done during that whole phase.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I guess I think it makes sense, your first suggestion, to do it, to define it in the same way as we defined it in the previous section as part of section A of the pre-transition period.
We have about another minute left on this one. Just wanting, if we're doing the 5-minute rule around here, just letting you know around that. Okay, so Co-Chair Catherine, Commissioner Dan, what is the
So
proposed words?
I think under A, it would be during, I think section A of the pre-transition period. Is that the right language? Okay. So or the first part of the transition period, pre-transition period, whatever. Yes, thank you.
Very good. Thank you so much. Co-Chair Catherine, are we good on this point? Yes. Okay. Co-Chair Faith.
Thanks. I just want to go back to Commissioner Tim's point and hopefully, and maybe we need to clarify it further, but so the transition staff positions may be transferred. And I think that this should actually say to the Oversight Bureau upon the hiring of the director at the director's discretion. So the actual paid staff. If the new director is like, I don't want these transition staff, then those positions would conclude. So not the transition volunteers, but the staff. Hopefully defining it as bureau helps.
How are you feeling, Commissioner Tim? Does that?
That's
provide
great. Thank you.
clarity Needed? Okay, very good. Co-chair or Commissioner Dan, sorry.
I think maybe to clear up that question, change the word upon to the word following.
Very good. Any other comments, questions, staff?
Yeah, just a question. When this was first read into the record and then first commented on, I think a couple people, members of the commission had said the following hiring and training of the director, but that is not actually what the text says. So if that's the intention, then have, leave it the way it is, of course. But just wanted to flag that that's maybe something that was stated but not yet incorporated into the text.
Thank you so much. Any additions? Co-chair Catherine.
I think staff is right that we meant the hiring and training, because that would make sense with the next sentence as well. So I think it should be following the hiring and training of the director. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions, concerns? Very good. I would like to ask, is there strong opposition to adding the new text to section A? Is there general agreement to adding the new text to section A? Very good. Thank you. I see agreement. Is there strong opposition to adding new text to section B? Is there general agreement to adding the new text in section B? Thank you. May we move on? Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. B3, transition volunteers. The transition staff shall appoint a group of up to 12 transition volunteers who recuse themselves from the initial appointment of board members. These volunteers will be drawn from former members of the PAC and current or former members of the CRC and any other volunteer entity being sunsetted as part of board implementation. Section B, the transition volunteer group shall sunset after the appointment and completion of training of the first oversight board members, but these volunteers shall remain available as a resource to new oversight board members.
Thank you. Any comments, questions, or concerns on A or B? And as staff are doing, anytime that sunset is in the document, they will put conclude in instead. Is there strong opposition to adding the new text in sections A and B? I'm sorry, there's no new text, so it's just replacement. So this is already approved and we can, are there any questions, concerns? Can we move forward? Thank you so much.
Right, section B4, budget access, subsection A. To accomplish the timeline outlined in this document, several factors are reliant on having necessary budget available to staff the transition. The Oversight Board will have access to its budget on day one of the transition period, but due to potential delays in the timeline, if funding is delayed, the transition would be more feasible if a budget allocation is available prior to that date. If funding is not in place, work cannot begin until day one, and the work outlined here will be significantly delayed. These delays could place the city out of compliance with the charter and potentially the settlement agreement.
Are there any questions, concerns, or comments on A? Can we move on? Thank you.
Subsection B, the timeline outlined in the recommendations of this document assume that necessary budget and support will be in place to accomplish the transition. Necessary budget and support includes, at a minimum, 1, authorization for 3 staff positions, including the transition manager. 2, funding for outreach, recruitment, technology, and transition staff of at least $700,000 of the Oversight Board's budget allocation for the transition fiscal year. Access to this funding will be made available to the transition staff upon their appointment. PAC recommends that it occurs during the pre-transition period. C, remaining portions of the Oversight Board's budget allocation for the fiscal year in which board members are appointed and the director is hired would remain accessible to the board and director.
Any comments, questions, or concerns on sections B and C? May we move on? Thank you. Section C.
Okay, section C, initial member appointment and training. C1, member appointment. A, applications for board membership should be available during the pre-transition period, but no later than month 1 of the transition. Transition staff will manage the application process, and the transition team will conduct outreach to the community. The transition team will review applications and will submit to the City Council a set of eligible candidates to consider. C, PAC requests that Council determine appointees within 4 weeks. The City Council shall review the applications and then will notify transition staff of desired appointees so that appointments can be placed on the Council agenda at the next opportunity. Appointments made before January 1, 2025 will be made by the full City Council, including the mayor and 4 commissioners. Appointments made after January 1, 2025 will be made by the vote of the 12 members of the City Council.
Thank you so much. Any comments, questions, or concerns on sections A, B, and C? Very good. On sections A and B, can we move on? On section C, is there strong opposition to adding the new text? Is there general agreement to adding the new text in section C? There is, thank you. May we move on? Wonderful, thank you.
Okay, so section D, the application may remain open and the transition team will continue to review applications and submit new candidates to City Council regularly to fill any member positions unable to be filled in the first appointment or to appoint alternates. E, board members appointed during the transition period will be appointed.
Sorry.
You're good. For terms lasting the remainder of the transition period and an additional 1, 2, or 3 years, such that 1/3 of the board or 11 members will have terms of 1 year, another 1/3 2 years, and another 1/3 3 years. Board applicants may select their preference of term length, and the transition team will do their best to accommodate first or second preference in the batch of applicants sent to City Council. The transition team shall also prioritize board member selection requirements in each group of 11 appointees to ensure diversity.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions, concerns, or comments? Let's see, Commissioner Charlie and then Commissioner Dan.
Yes, so on, what is it? E, group of 11 nominees, to ensure diversity. It's been my extensive experience when diversity is used, it has a variety of outcomes. And a lot of times it's like if we have a couple of BIPOC people or other underrepresented folks on a board or a committee or whatever, they chalk that up as diversity. So to ensure diversity, we need more information in there, and I'm not sure exactly what that is. I think it's spelled out in the board membership. So maybe we could say as stated in board membership or something like that. It's just, it'd be unacceptable to have the minimum amount of diversity to check that box.
Thank you, Commissioner Charlie. I'm going to go to Co-Chair Faith.
Thanks, Commissioner Charlie. Yeah, I think clarifying here. So I think that the original thought was making sure that even within each term length of 11 of the 11 would be diverse. So that each term, so like we wouldn't have all the BIPOC folks be in a 1-year term, all the folks experiencing mental illness to be in a 2-year term, so that the diversity would be among the term lengths. So I think that the reference to the board membership document is important. And also, I don't know how to say that. We're trying to make sure. Okay, thank you for citing that. So hold on, I'm going to think this through. Shall prioritize board member selection requirements in each group of 11 appointees to ensure that each group reflects the diversity outlined in blah. Board membership document, areas of agreement. Thank you.
Beautiful, thank you. Commissioner Charlie, does that answer your need?
Yes, very much so. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Commissioner Dan.
Oh, just a minor thing, but the original language said a group of 11 candidates. That was changed to appointees, but at the time that the transition team is sending it to the city council, they're still just nominees. So I suggest use the word nominees instead of appointees, because they're not appointees until after the city council appoints them. So I'm hoping that that's a simple enough thing to put in nominees there. Thanks.
Where would that go?
Well, it's right off the bottom of the screen there. Yeah, right there.
Okay.
Instead of appointees, I'm just saying it should be nominees, because when the transition team has them in their hands, they're not appointees yet, right? I see you nodding.
I'm gonna ask staff to chime in.
Just wanted to clarify with co-chairs if that's effectively friendly, because there's sort of 2 proposed changes to the same text here, and so just wanted to, when that happens, we show the one on screen from co-chairs. Just wanted to clarify that first. So,
Co-Chair Faith.
I think, Dan, I understand your point, and I think the only hesitation from why we changed it from candidates to appointees was like, we wanted it to be stronger to the city council of like, hey, these are the people we're choosing. You got to give a thumbs up. So can we say recommended appointees? Thank you.
Yes. Any other comments, questions, concerns? All right, so I think we go back to D, is that correct? Are there any comments, questions, or concerns on D? Can we move on? Yes. E. Is there strong opposition to adding the new text to E? Is there general agreement to adding the new text to E? Yes. Catherine? Yes, very good. Okay, thank you so much. We have E approved. And it is 7. Let's do F and then we'll take a break. How does that sound? Okay.
Great. F, board members will begin to receive compensation and other forms of support upon appointment. It is anticipated that different parts of the member support structure will take effect at different times, with some portions not taking effect until after the transition period.
Any comments, questions, or concerns on section F? May we move on? Very good. Thank you. It is 7:30. Let's take a 7-minute break. We'll come back at 7:37. Thank you so much. Welcome back, everyone. Making great progress. We'll continue on. All right, C.
Okay, C2, initial board member training. After council appointment, board members and alternates shall go through training. B, training that will normally be organized by staff may be delivered by transition staff and or by experts and affected parties, including but not limited to 1, civil rights attorneys, 2, public defenders, 3, civil rights activists, particularly from over-policed communities, such as BIPOC, people with mental illness / addiction issues, and the houseless community. C, peer training, which normally will be conducted by 1 or more existing board members, will be done by current and former members of the CRC and civilian members of the Police Review Board. After completing training on handling of confidential materials, the new oversight board members will receive case files in CRC appeals and PRB cases, consider the findings in those cases, and attend the hearings without interfering as part of their training on how to review complaints.
Thank you. Any comments, questions, or concerns on A, B, or C? Commissioner Charlie.
Thank you. On B3, first I'm confused with the wording. Okay, civil rights activists, particularly from over-policed communities, such as BIPOC, people with mental illness, addiction issues, houseless community. So those are the civil rights people, or are you saying also people from over-policed communities, BIPOC, people with mental illness, addiction, recovery? I think it should say recovery instead of issues, but anyway, and houses communities. So first I wanted to clarify that. And then second, it just seems like then that's the end of the list, but really, because, you know, when I share, I'm sharing from lived experience, and I would say traumatic lived experience in all these issues. So I'm wondering, to make it more inclusive, if it could be, if we could maybe add a trauma informed as well. So I know that's a lot, so any help on that would be appreciated.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Charlie. Commissioner Angie?
Thank you, Commissioner Charlie. I would like to, BIPOC community is good, but I think immigrant community might be a better word, but I also would like to, no, not immigrant. I would like to ask Commissioner Charlie how, the name of the, I don't want to say Native American. I'm not sure what wording would be most accurate for that.
Commissioner Charlie?
Well, BIPOC is Black, Indigenous, and People of Color. I always refer to BBIPOC, Black, Brown, Indigenous, and People of Color, but that's what the I is for, Indigenous. But then immigrant, if we could add immigrant, but I just really feel strongly that it should also be trauma informed. Because that from my experience, touches on so many more than just this list. And is so important in this work to be trauma informed.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Charlie. Co-Chair Faith?
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner Charlie. So perhaps the trauma-informed portion should go before the list. So training that will normally be organized by staff may be delivered by transition staff and or by experts and affected parties utilizing
A trauma-informed approach.
yes. Thank you. Okay. So Commissioner Charlie, I'll read these to you and tell me if this makes sense. Training that will normally be organized by staff may be delivered utilizing a trauma-informed approach by transition staff and or by experts and affected parties, including but not limited to civil rights attorneys, public defenders, civil rights activists, members of over police communities such as BIPOC, immigrant communities, people with mental illness / addiction and recovery community, and the houseless community.
Addiction recovery. No, and
people with mental illness, addiction recovery, and then I think we can delete that community.
right.
Very good. Any other comments, questions, concerns about this section? All right, then, is there strong opposition to adding the new text in section B? Is there general agreement to adding the new text in section B? Very good. I see general agreement. Thank you. Any questions? And so any questions or concerns around A or C? Can we move on? Thank you so much. D.
Okay, section D, initial staff hiring and training. D1, director hiring. As soon as the board members have been appointed by City Council, the search for a director will commence. A draft job listing will be prepared by the transition team for review by the board. Then transition staff will post the job and conduct community outreach so the community is aware of the position. Transition staff shall share these applications with the board. The board will then follow the procedure from the PAC's areas of agreement on oversight staff to hire the director.
Any comments, questions, or concerns on this? Can we move on? Thank you so much.
D2, priority staff hiring during the transition period. A, once the director is hired, they will work with the transition team to recruit staff applicants for the Oversight Bureau. B, the director will prioritize the hiring of intake staff, navigators, and investigators to ensure the Oversight Board is able to begin receiving and investigating complaints by the end of the transition period. C, during the transition phase, the director may also wish to hire the auditor/monitor/inspector general and legal counsel to ensure a smooth ramp up. If so, as outlined in the PAC areas of agreement on oversight staff, the board shall be involved in hiring those positions.
Thank you so much, co-chair, staff.
Yes, thank you. So these are two distinct and separate proposed changes and probably need to be evaluated separately. So the first is to delete the blue text is what was showing at the end of the last meeting. What is now struck through as outlined in the PAC areas of agreement on oversight staff, the board shall be involved in hiring of the auditor, monitor, inspector general, and legal counsel. And that's a proposed change that's referenced in the upper comment. And then separately from that, there is a alteration to that text, which is the green text, which has the second comment explaining it.
Thank you, staff. On sections A and B, are there any questions, concerns, or comments? Can we move on? Thank you. On section C, the blue struck through words. Is there strong opposition to deleting the words in blue? Is there general agreement to deleting the words in blue? Very good. I see general agreement. Any comments or questions on the new additions in the words in green? Comments, concerns, or questions? Is there strong opposition to adding the new text in green? Is there general agreement to adding the new text in green? I see agreement. Thank you so much. Oh, can we do that again? I'm sorry, during that full screen. Thank you so much. Maybe move on. Great, thank you. Move on to the next area that is up when staff are ready.
Section D3, staff training. Section A, the transition team and oversight board are responsible for ensuring the director undergoes training upon hiring. Section B, the director is responsible for ensuring all other oversight bureau staff undergo required training upon hiring.
Are there any questions, concerns, or comments on sections A and B? May we move on? Thank you so much. Section E.
I think we go to F.
I'm sorry, staff.
Yeah, so the idea was if there was anything flagged for further discussion when we did the first pass in E, then the subcommittee would revisit the document or revisit that when going through. But everything was approved, so that is correct on section F. Just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of what was going on.
Thank you so much. Section F.
Okay, section F. Post-transition period. F1, independent police review. At the beginning of the post-transition period, IPR will no longer accept new complaints. During phase 1 of the post-transition period, IPR will continue to work through any complaints accepted prior to the end of the transition period. IPR shall work to resolve all pending complaints by the end of phase 1 of the post-transition period. As IPR's work winds down, the IPR director, along with the Bureau of Human Resources, will determine how to reduce the size of the organization to match the workload. B, the director shall ensure that IPR staff have preference in hiring for employment at the new Oversight Bureau, as long as they meet all additional criteria for Oversight Bureau employment. When hiring current IPR employees for positions at the Oversight Bureau, the directors of the Oversight Bureau and of IPR shall coordinate so that IPR maintains continuity of operations.
Thank you. Okay, we'll keep going. We'll do A and B. So any comments, questions, or concerns in section A? Is there strong opposition to changing to adding the new text in section A? Is there general agreement to adding the new text in section A? I see agreement. Thank you. Any comments, questions, or concerns in section B? May we move on? Thank you. C.
C, the director of the Oversight Bureau may at their discretion hire the director of IPR on staff and allow them to complete work for the old system while the new one ramps up.
Any comments, questions, or concerns on C? Is there strong opposition to adding this new text? Oh, I'm sorry, staff?
Just a question for clarification. When would that occur? And is that designed to line up with the timeline in F5 on the transfer, or is it designed to be a completely independent thing, I guess is the question.
Co-chairs? Commissioner Dan?
Well, this was my proposal, and I think leaving it vague is okay. I mean, this is listed under post-transition period. So if the director of the new board decides to hire the IPR director right at the beginning of the post-transition period, that's fine, because that's 180 days of winding down where the IPR director could be helpful to the new board, or they could wait till it's over. So I think we should just leave it vague, but unless somebody disagrees.
Co-chair Catherine.
I guess I'm just wondering about the issues around ensuring that IPR is appropriately staffed to complete its work during that 180-day period, whether the allowing the hiring of the director during that 180-day period would thwart, would be contrary to that that objective.
Co-chair Faith.
I wonder in the section above it that we just moved past in A? Or, oh, I'm sorry, I'm reading section A, the last sentence. I wonder if it's just appropriate, to include this, like if section C could. Okay, sorry, I'm gonna make this confusing. If at the end of post-transition period and then as IPR, if that could become a new section B. So as IPR's work winds down, that become a new sub-bullet, sub-point. And then what Commissioner Handelman has suggested in section D, if that could become part of this B, because we're really addressing staffing here. So as IPR's work winds down, the IPR director along with will determine how to reduce the size of the organization to match the workload. The director of the Oversight Bureau may at their discretion hire the director of IPR on staff and allow them to complete work. Catherine, if those two are in conjunction with each other, does that kind of solve for the conflict you were
Yes.
bringing up?
I think so. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much, Co-Chair Faith. Commissioner Dan? Good, okay. So thank you so much, Co-Chair Faith. So are there any comments, questions, concerns on B? Is there strong opposition to adding the new text and creating the new section B? Is there general agreement to adding the new text and creating the new section B? I see general agreement. Thank you. And I believe C is approved. Is that correct?
Maybe we need to give a thumbs up to C.
Let's do that. Okay. So any questions, concerns, or comments on C? Can we move on? Thank you.
Okay. F2, Citizen Review Committee. A, the CRC will continue to hear appeals during phase 1 of the post-transition period. CRC shall work to resolve all pending appeals by end of phase 1 of the post-transition period. B, during phase 1 of the post-transition period, the city will maintain full membership of the CRC so that they can hold hearings and participate in PRB hearings where CRC members are required. C, CRC members may serve on both the CRC and on the Oversight Board during the transition and post-transition periods.
Any comments, questions, concerns on A, B, or C? Is there strong opposition to adding the new text in section A? Is there general agreement to adding the new text to section A? Yes, thank you. Any comments, questions, concerns on section B? Is there strong opposition to adding the new text in section B? Is there general agreement to adding the new text in section B? I see agreement, thank you. Any comments, concerns, or questions on C? Is there strong opposition to adding the new text in C? Is there general agreement to adding the new text in C? Thank you so much. Let staff catch up here. Beautiful.
Okay, F3 Police Review Board. A, during phase 1 of the post-transition period, the PRB will continue to hear cases within the jurisdiction of the Oversight Board. PRB shall work to resolve all pending cases by the end of phase 1 of the post-transition period. IPR 2, IPR shall ensure that the pool of PRB community members shall be sufficient to hold police review boards. PRB community volunteers may also concurrently serve on the Oversight Board.
Thank you so much, Co-Chair. Commissioner Dan?
Yeah, I see this is over in the comments. I think it's confusing to say that they'll hear cases within the jurisdiction of the Oversight Board because nothing that goes to the Oversight Board should head back to the PRB. So I suggested saying they should continue to hear cases initiated during the transition period. Make it more clear.
Do you agree with that, Commissioner?
During or prior to the transition period.
Okay. Can you state that again for staff to put into the document?
Yeah, the PRB will continue to hear cases initiated during or prior to the transition period to replace the language that says within the jurisdiction of the Oversight Board.
Co-Chair Catherine, does that resonate with you also?
Yes.
Very good. All right, any other comments, questions, concerns in section A, 1 or 2? All right, is there a strong opposition to adding the new text in sections A1 and A2? Is there general agreement to adding the new text in sections A1 and A2? Very good. Thank you so much. We're moving along here quite nicely. Thank you. Section B.
B, by the start of phase 2 of the post-transition period, 1, the PRB member seat currently held, B1, the PRB member seat currently held for a member of the Citizen Review Committee will be changed to a second community member from the community pool of volunteers confirmed by City Council. 2, the responsibilities of the IPR director to recommend volunteers to the pool of community members that may serve on the PRB to recommend community member removal from the pool for reasons outlined in city code and to serve on the PRB or send a designee will be transferred to the Oversight Bureau director.
Any comments, questions, or concerns about section 1 and section 1 and 2? Commissioner Dan?
Yeah, I would like to know where this language came from because we didn't see this at our last meeting. But for historical context and legal concern, part 1 was originally in a package of changes the City Council tried to make to the Police Review Board in June of 2022, a year ago, and it was stopped because it didn't have to do with the simple changes that needed to be made when the auditor was getting rid of the PRB out of her office. So this is already something that was proposed and derailed at City Council. And one of the reasons is that a DOJ agreement requires that the second person from the community is a member of the CRC, and there's a good argument for that because police review board members don't have any real connection to the community in the sense that they don't have meetings, and the CRC does. So I'm just wondering where this came from, and it's something that people feel strongly enough about where we can't like pull it back out.
Comments from anyone? Co-chair Faith?
Hello, this came from co-chairs. In attempt to clarify some of the confusion from the last draft. I don't know enough about this to feel strongly, so I would look to other folks who have wider expertise on this.
Thank you. Staff?
Yeah, so just looking at the footnote, in that it refers to the Police Review Board code, which has references to the IPR director C1A1. So the responsibility of the IPR director is here to put people into the pool. And then there's go back to the footnote here, C1A1C and C1A4, so that the IPR director can recommend, may recommend, sorry, the removal for reasons, and then the director of IPR designee also serves. So that's where that comes from. If I recall the conversation, or is what it's referencing in terms of the sort of, excuse me, the premises of it, what the IPR director's role is. And then I'm maybe this is a question that someone else can answer. When the Citizen Review Committee no longer exists, how would it have members on the Police Review Board? That might just be a clarification question.
Anyone want to answer that question? Have thoughts around that question? Commissioner Dan?
Well, maybe I have to revisit that section, but my understanding was that first of all, CRC members could apply to serve on the oversight board, so there may be members who are still there acting in both capacities. And second of all, that the phase 2 is described in the definition section as that there may be some, some work that still needs to be wrapped up, even though the 180 days is the goal in phase 1 of the post transition. So, I suppose that, well, I don't know. I mean, I kind of feel like I need to get a reading from the DOJ about whether we can propose this without the, and maybe the city council will just put it into their package of proposed changes to the settlement agreement. I don't know.
Staff?
Yeah, sorry, I'm not sure. I don't recall whether it was at this subcommittee or the other subcommittee, so not everybody in the full commission may have heard this, but Deputy City Attorney Sarah Ames did say that the PAC can make recommendations for settlement agreement amendments as part of its package. I'm not sure if that's something that the members want to do or not, and certainly each idea is something that members should evaluate on its merits as a good idea or a bad one. But just wanted to make sure that if that was said at the other subcommittee, that you all heard it as well. So, thank you.
Thank you, staff. Co-chair Catherine.
So I missed the last meeting, and that may be part of my confusion, but I'm finding this very confusing. So I guess my question is, it seems like Commissioner Dan's recommendation is just to remove this language. And I guess my question is, is it, is this one of those things that can be sorted out later? Or does it have to be in here now? I guess I'm just not really sure whether this is a detail we need to tend to at this point. Because we're talking about the period in time where presumably these organizations are no longer are no longer functioning in the way they currently function, at least.
Thank you so much. Co-chair Faith.
I think general confusion is a good sign that we should garden plot this. I don't feel strongly about keeping it in here, and if we can move this, I don't see why we wouldn't.
Thank you so much, Co-chair Faith. So I just want to, I guess, maybe ask if we can move on because we've put this into the garden plot. Can I see jazz hands for that? Thank you so much. F4.
Okay. F4, internal affairs. A, at the beginning of the post-transition period, the Oversight Board will accept those types of complaints currently addressed by internal affairs, but which the new system directs to the Oversight Board. B, internal affairs shall conclude, following the creation of the board and conclusion of its work addressing complaints received prior to the Oversight Board's full implementation.
Any questions, concerns, comments about sections A or B? Commissioner Dan.
Having trouble reading the notes there. I printed out my own version of this, though, so I might be able to read it off my paper. This is language that's taken from the other subcommittee. We have to resolve this at the full commission. So I'm hoping that our subcommittee will bring some language that's a little bit less instructive to telling the police bureau what to do. So my proposal was to say internal affairs shall reduce its size and, if appropriate, end its existence following the creation of the board and conclusions of its work addressing complaints, et cetera. Because I think that's we've run into several things where we're reluctant to tell the police bureau exactly what to do, and what we heard back, we haven't heard a presentation from Bureau of Human Resources yet, but I think what we heard back is that BHR helps the individual bureaus investigate their employees and then helps impose the discipline on them, but it doesn't do the investigations themselves. So the police bureau, like all the other bureaus, has to have somebody to do these kinds of investigations. It doesn't have to be called internal affairs, but I think it'd be better for us to kind of leave it as less final, I guess, less final language coming from us.
Thank you, Commissioner Dan. Co-chair Faith.
Well, I want to tell the police bureau what to do. But I hear your point, Dan. I think I just I think I'm feeling like if the other subcommittee has put thought into this, I don't want to contradict their thought without a discussion. So that's why I think I recommended to just leave it as is with a flag for discussion, because obviously our language needs to match. But I'd really like to hear from the other subcommittee on their reasoning for kind of keeping it pretty strongly worded.
Thank you, co-chair. Staff.
I just wanted to flag that the PAC as a full group on April 24th approved a subcommittee creation for this phase of work, which includes that the subcommittee on broader system would address the items listed above, including board relationship with other entities and change to other city entities as part of board implementation. And so the full commission has decided that the other subcommittee would be addressing this in their referred draft. That doesn't mean that this text has to be in this draft. It was mostly added as a placeholder, if I recall correctly, until perhaps a more specific to the transition timing work was figured out. And it's hard to tell because it's got this comment on it, but it is actually highlighted in yellow to sort of show that it's referred text that would be updated if the other document is updated and the other document is now at the full commission level. Just wanted to flag that for context. And if the other, but to just put a finer point on that, if the other document is updated and this text changes in any way, it would also be changed here automatically. But if the full commission were to do that, thanks.
Thank you. So, co-chairs, you want to hold this for discussion, is that right? With the full commission? Co-chair Faith?
I think that's my recommendation, but I mean, as a group, we would need to decide on that.
Is that what the group recommends? Can I see some agreement around that? Commissioner Charlie?
A question, does this mean though that this one item, we won't have to meet tomorrow, right? We'll go straight to Thursday.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. We're gonna try not to meet tomorrow. Co-chair Faith.
Yeah, I will say, I know we sort of just resolved this, and I think Commissioner Dan, I hear your point. And I think one of the things that I just want to note this, that especially in this document, we've tried to really straddle the line is making our recommendations what we want versus changing what we want to be more politically feasible. And so while I understand kind of your point around it may not, like in terms of city structure, there may be no one to do administrative investigations if internal affairs completely concluded. I sort of want to say like, that's our recommendation and it's on the city to really figure out how to do that. And so that's, I think, the tenor that as co-chair Catherine and I have been making edits is really feeling strongly in this plan that we're pushing the city to, we're not going to figure out how to be tenable. That's the city's job to listen to our recommendations and then figure out how to do it. But
Thank
heard,
you.
and I understand your perspective on this.
Thank you so much, co-chair. Can we move on? I see agreement yet that we can move on. Thank you. We need to, okay, great, very good.
Sorry, just to clarify, this is sort of not actually relevant to this section. It's what is marked as A is actually removed as part of this.
Okay,
The header kind of got in the way, and then the text that's in a different font is down below as part of I'm sorry, F5. Just to clarify, so we can move that to show where it was originally. It just kind of got lost with all the headers getting moved around between last meeting and this meeting.
very good, thank you. So F5.
Okay. F5. Transfer of active complaints received under old system. A. At the end of phase 1 of the post-transition period, all complaints pending before IPR, PRB, or the CRC that are within the jurisdiction of the Oversight Board shall be transferred to the Oversight Board for resolution. The Oversight Board shall prioritize prompt resolution of these complaints. 1. To the extent allowable by applicable law and collective bargaining agreements, the Oversight Board shall apply its procedures and standards to resolution of complaints transferred from IPR, PRB, or CRC at the end of phase 1 of the post-transition period. 2, if the oversight board is required to apply legacy procedures and standards to transferred complaints, the board shall create a separate transitional hearings division to ensure that the transferred complaints are handled in accordance with such requirements. The transition hearings division shall conclude as soon as all transferred complaints are resolved.
Any comments, questions, or concerns on A or B? Commissioner Charlie.
Yeah, I guess this is the best we can do. I thought I was okay with it, but like the previous statement of our wonderful Commissioner Faith about the previous thing we were talking about, like, let's ask them for what we want, and if we don't get it, then leave it up to them to come up with something. Although I guess I want more conversation around this. Why we're giving them an out, like where it says on A2, if the oversight board is required to apply legacy procedures. So who requires that? But also for the record, you know me, the police accountability in our goals and values commission is committed to putting these values in action by fulfilling the listed success criteria in its work, establishing a new system which is fair, just, and reflects the concerns, needs, and desires of community, including their criticisms of current accountability systems and structures, which is police, policing, police. And then, you know, our goal of trustworthiness, that's going to be an issue if it goes, if we have to do legacy. Community center, goal 5, values and needs of the community above the needs of the city government or the PPB, and which are a system which is created and evolves with the input of community and which empowers communities, a system that does not favor the officer accused of misconduct over the complaint. So I just, you know, I just feel strongly about that, but someone convince me again, please, because yeah, you know, this part really bothers me.
Well, I would like to hear from Commissioner Ajay and Commissioner Tim, people who I haven't heard from this evening. In addition, this is a quality invitation to have a conversation around this section that Commissioner Charlie has given to all of us. Staff?
I'm sorry, I just wanted to flag the end of the document is right after section B, and it may be helpful to contextualize A to read them together. Just wanted to flag that so you can respond to both. It's sort of the second half of the subsection. There's nothing. So yeah, thank you.
Co-Chair Faith.
Sure. B, IPR and CRC shall conclude their operations within a reasonable period of time in phase 2 of the post-transition period. PRB shall similarly conclude its operations relevant to complaints within the oversight board's jurisdiction during this time frame.
Thank you, Commissioner Dean, but I'm also going to invite in other committee members who I haven't heard from yet. Commissioner Tim.
Yes, thanks. I guess I definitely understand the concern about, you know, the different standards and the different, you know, definitely understand the concern about the new board having to apply the old procedures, but I don't see how we get around it other than originally we had discussed having the other entities around for a very long time, which just doesn't seem feasible. So I don't know how we can do anything different than this. And I guess I don't have as much concern about the public's perception of the new board because they might be required to apply the old procedures. So I feel reluctantly okay with this section, I guess.
Thank you, Commissioner Tim. Commissioner Angie. Any thoughts on this?
I'm trying to read it very consciously right now. Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Tim in that I don't have any exquisite words of wisdom as to how to proceed with this because we don't really have a choice. I feel like, I don't know. I mean, there might be a way of looking at it that I'm not looking at it right now, but I'm going to continue to take a look at it right now. So thank you for asking me.
Sure. Commissioner Ajay.
I mean, I guess I was just thinking back to something that was mentioned earlier about proposing amendments to the settlement agreement itself. And I mean, that could be a potential option to limit the ability to rely on the previous processes or something, or even like a statement. And I think that, you know, B kind of speaks to this about like concluding things in a reasonable time frame. Yeah, like I wonder if it might make sense to, and I don't have language for this right now because I'm too tired, but just a general statement around like, you know, the city's desire for change and, you know, relying upon legacy procedures won't get us out of the position that we're in, which is a fundamental distrust and displeasure with the current oversight system. And so given that fundamental distrust and displeasure with that oversight system, the idea of applying legacy procedures from it for some kind of indefinite period of time kind of goes against the values of the voters. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of the only thing that I could think as far as like for A2 around like, how do we get around the potential, you know, bargaining agreement or whatever things that require some legacy standards to be applied. And maybe instead of saying like, if we're required to do it, we'll do this way, instead saying we should not be required to do this because, etc. Or like, this is not in line with the will of the voters to continually apply standards that are deemed to be inadequate and ineffective in this current moment, you know?
Thank you, Commissioner Ajay. Commissioner Dan.
Yeah, well, I appreciate everything people have said. And so, you know, basically there are two things we ran up against here. One is not wanting to keep IPR, CRC, and the Police Review Board going forever. And that's why we had that section that we pulled for the garden plot later, because they might need to exist if we want them to hear these cases instead of the new board, right? So I think to address the concerns that people are bringing up about our values and the values of the people who voted for this new system, maybe in subsection 1, we should say PAC strongly recommends that this is how the cases should be handled. And that way, you know, it's clear that part 2 is just a fail-safe that we put in there for, because we understand the law is probably going to come, not going to come down our side, but we hope it does. I'm not sure how people feel about that. So, I was saying in subsection 1.
Thank you.
At the end of subsection 1, PAC strongly recommends that this is the procedure that is adopted.
Commissioner Charlie.
Well, then I would like to add something to that. Why do we strongly recommend? Because of some of the things that Ajay said. in line with the, I don't know. So I don't know if we could put, you know, the values and the goals in there somehow, but darn, I wish I had that thing I read from Samir, you had asked me, where am I getting that information from?
How
Do you-
long?
That was a few meetings ago, but okay, something that supports. PAC strongly recommends this. This is the procedure that is adopted. And I guess in line with I don't know, centering community or something. I don't know, to align, yeah, to align with the values of the charter amendment. That's it. Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner
Yeah.
Dan.
Thank you, Commissioner Charlie. Co-Chair Faith?
Yeah, I think, and to just further this, like if subsection 2 would be like, I think per Commissioner Audrey's point of like, I want to say this is at the minimum, like, if the, I don't even want to say required, if the city is not amenable to this recommendation, and the oversight board is required to apply legacy procedures. Yeah, I feel, yep. I just want to be like, hey, this is the absolute second choice and it's the bare minimum.
Thank you, co-chair. Charlie, did you have something? Commissioner Charlie, did you have additional?
Yeah, I was wondering if there's a word stronger than required, but maybe not forced, you know. The board is forced to apply legacy, but something in between there. Just to further.
Okay, Commissioner Dan?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Charlie, go right ahead.
Well, having watched the sausage making of the PPA contract, I would say that city may be amenable to it, but they might not be able to achieve it. So I think we should just say if the city is not able to implement this recommendation, and the oversight is legally required, oversight board is legally required to apply legacy procedures. I see some nodding.
All right. Staff.
So this goes way back to something that Commissioner Ajay was talking about with amending the settlement agreement, and relates to the text of that's in the current settlement agreement. This is paragraph 195B, which explains how the commission process works and all the things that are being built out in this document. And this was flagged to pass on by the city attorney's office, so that the current settlement agreement text does have this sentence in it, which says that IPR shall then cease taking on new work and complete any pending work. So just wanted to make sure that that was shown. That is obviously something that a corresponding settlement agreement amendment to this document could also change. So just wanted to flag that. Thank you.
Thank you, staff. Any other comments? Oh, co-chair Catherine.
Yeah, I hate to wordsmith here, but I can't help myself. Can we say the PAC strongly recommends this approach, because it is in line. It is in line with the values of the charter amendment and addresses the issues identified by the PAC in its fact-finding phase. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions, concerns? Right. Is there strong opposition to adding all of this new text in A1? Is there general agreement to adding all of this new text in A1? Very good, thank you. Is there strong opposition to adding the new text in A2? Is there general agreement to adding the new text in A2? Very good, thank you. Can we move on? Great. B. Is there any, are there any questions, concerns, or comments on B? Is there strong opposition to adding this text in B? Is there general agreement to adding this new text in B? I see agreement. Thank you. We'll be going to another section.
So that concludes B through F, and I think co-chairs had comments on A.
Yeah, I think our discussion was that we would just do a quick discussion of both A and maybe if we have time, the definitions, but we wouldn't spend a whole lot of time trying to wordsmith this because I think ultimately we hope to maybe put this in more of a chart format. And also I think we viewed this as more a summary of sections B through F, so we didn't want to spend a whole lot of time on A, but since we have time, I think we'll do a quick pass through it and you know, people can flag their comments, but I guess our approach was that we didn't think we need to go through and like approve each section here because we viewed it as a summary and something that I think will eventually morph into more of a graph or a chart.
Very good. Thank you. Co-chair Faith.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just to supplement that, our hope is that we can refer the document B through F this evening. And then as co-chair Catherine mentioned, is that at the full commission, we would be presenting like the definitions to align with B through F and a visual timeline. So that's our intention.
Very good. Staff?
Yeah, I just wanted to flag that council staff has expressed a lot of interest in a visual graphical thing that to accompany and explain this chart or graph or flow chart. Thank you.
Any comments or questions? So we're going to go through this section, is that correct? A. And read through it.
Yeah, I think if we have time, I mean, I think what we really want to be sure of is that we can get to an agreement and a referral of, the substantive portions of the section of this document, sections B through F tonight, so we don't have to meet tomorrow. And then to the extent people have comments or thoughts on the definition and timeline, we can take those. But I guess I just want to make sure that our discussion of these sections doesn't doesn't take up the time we need to be able to refer the substantive portions of the document to the full commission.
So why don't we do that? And I believe we need to take public comment on the document itself, if we're getting ready to refer that. Is that true, staff?
Yes.
Okay, so I suggest that we take public comment on the documents section B through F. And I invite the public to I see Commissioner Dan's hand first. Go right ahead.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Moses. So I spent some time taking the definition section and I made it into a grid with 4 columns instead of 2 that describes the timeline, the basic substance, and where the timeline came from for each of these phases that we described. And I think I personally would recommend leaving the verbal definitions that we have here in section A where they are, and having this definition section look like what I've drawn up. So I'm hoping that, since we have a couple extra minutes maybe, that staff will share my version of that definition document for the rest of the subcommittee to look at. Because I think I've gotten the sense that some of us are confused about what these timelines are, and I tried to make it really clear. I'm hoping that we can look at that.
Thank you, Co-Chair Faith.
Thanks, Dan. Yes, received, and yes, we can review. I would like to prioritize referring B through F. Catherine, if that's great, if we could go to public comment, refer B through F, and then Commissioner Dan, if we have time, we'll review. But we also want to go through the timeline and the definitions with the full commission regardless. So that will be something that will come to the full commission now that we have, well, now that we potentially are agreeing on B through F. I feel like we can clean up the definitions and the timeline, and we will absolutely take a look. I have looked at your new chart of definitions.
Very good. Thank you so much, Co-Chair. I would like to invite the public to comment on the draft document B through F. Are there any people in the public who would like to comment? Corinne, do you see any people in the audience who have raised their hand who would like to give public comment?
I do not.
Thank you very much. Then the subcommittee has completed discussion on this document. And next on the agenda is whether the subcommittee should, staff.
Just wanted to quickly show the values and goals. I apologize. I think that was,
very good. Yes.
I never remember if
values.
that comes before or after public comment. I apologize.
That's okay. So we'd like to go through the values and goals to ensure that the values and goals are being met within this document. And we'll just read these to ourselves. Next page. Next page, please. Next page, please. Thank you so much, staff. Any comments or questions after the review of the goals and values? Commissioner Charlie?
Yes, I feel like strongly we should be looking at those before we were creating this, not after. So we could have them in our minds as we're talking about these documents. Because now we're at the end of the night. Really, it's kind of a barrier to wanting to start discussing it. That's all.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. Commissioner Angie?
Thank you, Commissioner Charlie. And after reading these, I do feel a tinge of guilt related to how just that we weren't able to come up with something better related to using the transition between the two periods in that one discussion. I don't want to belabor it right now. Hopefully we can emphasize our values and goals before we discuss this with the whole with the entire PAC. Anyway, that's just how I'm feeling right now. I don't know if the rest of if everybody else is feeling that way, but thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Angie. Anyone else? All right. Commissioner Co-Chair Faith.
Yeah, I just want to honor that that's a pretty serious concern. So I want to honor, like, if you don't feel like you're ready to recommend this based on that, just because we don't want to meet tomorrow night, or because I would rather your opinion be honored and valid than us hurry. So I guess I have two thoughts. One, we don't refer the document because there's discomfort. Or two, I don't know, I think Commissioner Charlie, you're feeling something similar. I would be happy to talk with you both about, do we want to refer this document and then potentially make amendments to the language or make proposed changes? I don't want to quickly move forward while you're expressing some pretty significant discomfort.
Thank you so much, Co-Chair. Commissioner Angie?
Thank you. Most of my discomfort has to do with the statement and the values and goals that our new system will be not valued. Thank you for bringing it back up. It's towards the bottom, and it's comparing it to a system that regular system creates space. Portland's satisfaction with the new system is higher than the current system. That's what I'm worried. That's what I'm concerned with. And I don't know how to resolve that right now. Faith, Commissioner Faith, thank you very much for hearing me. And I wish I had something brilliant to say. I don't have any great ideas. And I think that sometimes maybe a discussion with the full PAC might bring out a different point of view than I'm looking at right now. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. Angie, staff?
So I'm maybe co-chair, full commission co-chair Tim might have been about to say this, so I apologize if I'm stealing something here. The agenda for the full commissions from here on out will have every new document. This is to Commissioner Charlie's point, that the values and goals will be before starting to discuss any document at the full commission. That's something that the co-chairs did. So you can see this is the agenda for this coming Thursday. And when we start talking about the other subcommittees, it'll first just be like a discussion, a description of it from the co-chairs, then values and goals before getting into the actual discussion. So hopefully, at least at the full commission level and going forward, this can be improved upon. Thank you.
Thank you, staff. So Commissioner Co-Chair Faith, wanting to bring your question back up to the entire group. Go right ahead, Co-Chair Faith.
Can we take a vote and I want people to feel free to, I think that generally we have a little bit of groupthink when we're getting close to the end. And if people are feeling truly uncomfortable, I would like them to be able to express that they don't want to move the document forward.
I'm gonna take Commissioner Tim and then Commissioner Dan.
Yeah, thanks. I guess I feel like, especially this one point we've discussed a lot, and I feel like it is our job to present to, as I understand, it's our role to present to the full commission our recommendation on things, and that then the full commission, we all will decide as a group if these recommendations are all the best that we can do. And so then I do wonder, since we've had so much discussion and dialogue and feeling torn about this point, if it isn't worth, I hate to say it this way, but sort of putting our best effort out there and then seeing what other members of the full commission think, and just knowing that we might have, and that we might want to encourage a really robust discussion on this point with the full commission, because I would hate to sort of really decide as a group what we think and then take away their ability to really consider it too. So I don't know.
Thank you, Commissioner Tim. Commissioner Dan?
Well, I suggest that we recommend it to the full commission with a footnote that says we're recommending this with some reservations. And then we can have that discussion, as you just said, Co-Chair Tim Pitts, at the full commission.
Commissioner Charlie, what's your thoughts?
My integrity is feeling uncomfortable because I like all the wording that that y'all came up with. And I suppose it's something, the way it is worded now, that it would be easier for me to explain to community that this isn't forever, this is temporary. We just got to get these done under the old system. But yeah, I guess I wouldn't mind hearing some more input, but I'm not going to hold it up.
Okay.
So yeah, this is a really, really challenging.
Mm-hmm. And I believe the co-chairs are really honoring that and really making space for this. So really appreciate your honesty and how you're feeling. I'd like to go to Commissioner Ajay. What are your thoughts?
I'll be real. Like, so part of the problem, I think, is that the values and the values document we had, some of the things on there are sort of like borderline, like ludicrous in terms of like being things that we could actually achieve on this commission. Like, I mean, one of the things is like having a PPB not rooted in racism. And it's like, we can't control the origin of policing and slavery. We can't control the culture of white supremacy in the police force. And this document is not going to change any of those things. So this idea that like we can judge our work according to some of these like absurd kind of pie in the sky values, I think is getting us a little tripped up. And you know, I mean, I kind of just see this as like a general aspirational, like what people would love to see, but this is not like rooted in the reality that is like the current policing culture or environment, which is why this whole thing exists to begin with. Like we wouldn't be doing this if the culture weren't the opposite of these things that we're striving for right now. So yeah, I think it's easy to say that like, well, we're definitely not following any of these, but like also, I mean, we have to provide something, you know? So yeah, I would not have created those kind of like those kind of things that are listed because they're just not achievable. And I think that makes them almost like useless, you know, in a way. Like I get that, you know, we're working towards something, but like a completely unachievable goal as a value that we're comparing like work to, I think that kind of sets us back, you know?
Thank you, Commissioner Ajay. Co-Chair Catherine.
Well, in my role as co-chair, I absolutely support everything that Faith said about wanting to give everyone space to support their views on these really important issues. In my personal capacity as a member of the subcommittee, I feel like we've done really good work and come up with collaboratively with I think about the best plan we could under the circumstances. And I appreciated, you know, in the pass through tonight where we were able to strengthen some of the language and really address people's concerns around some specific issues. So, I mean, I guess I feel like between the good work we did tonight and then the fact that we will have further discussion at the full commission, I think that I'm personally ready to move the document forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Co-Chair Faith, it's back to you after you've heard everyone.
Yeah, personally, as a member, I feel ready to recommend this to the full commission for conversation. And as a co-chair, I am really happy to, in the interim, work one-on-one with people if there's way we can strengthen our wording. And I appreciate that kind of recentering, Commissioner Ajay, of like, if we were to write a document, many of us, it would be like one sentence. We wouldn't be working within the confines of the bounds of the city of Portland in collaboration with PPB. Like those don't align with my values, but this is the best we have. So I personally feel ready to vote. As a co-chair, I feel happy to support anyone to get us to a place of consensus for the document at the full commission.
Staff?
Just wanted to flag from that there will be time, and we would be going over this in next steps, so I'm just moving it forward. There will be time to read and evaluate this text, and if each individual takes the time over the next 14 days, because it's likely that the first time that the full commission will get deep into this document is probably going to be Monday the 10th. To read this over and provide changes, then that would probably allow for a wider variety of members to weigh in on the text and propose changes that reflect their individual perspectives. And there could also be a lot of overlap there. The other document is likely to be around the same time too. So both of the documents, I know there's some overlapping concerns as well. The other thing that should be mentioned is it appears that most of the concern right now is around F5, that last section that was just reviewed. And you have the option of referring it without recommendation, which I believe was suggested earlier as well, which is essentially putting that footnote on it that I believe it was Commissioner Dan who mentioned that there are reservations around this text. And yet the next step that the subcommittee feels, if you choose to take that action, of course, is that the full commission should be the next step of it, regardless of the fact that there isn't necessarily enthusiastic consensus around every word of that section. And that's an option you have. You're not being forced to take it, but wanted to make sure you were aware of it, especially those who maybe it hasn't been taken in a while. So for those who were maybe not on that subcommittee or came later along, just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of it.
Thank you, staff. Co-chairs, your thoughts?
I don't know how you feel, Catherine. I feel we should vote as is. And if you disagree, then please feel free to disagree.
I think we should vote. See how the vote goes. That's my thought.
Okay, is there Commissioner Angie?
I just want one clarification. Are we voting on passing it forward with that footnote or without the footnote?
Co-chair Faith?
As of right now, without a footnote.
Commissioner Charlie?
Yeah, I'd definitely be very pleased if that footnote was added. Is there a reason why we can't?
No, what would we like the footnote to say?
What Dan, something like what Dan said. Can you repeat that, Dan?
Well, I suggested that subcommittee is passing this on to the full commission with some reservations, just like that.
Staff?
And the way we've visually shown that is just highlighted the entire section and then the relevant sections that are causing the reservation or provoking such a feeling, and then a comment of referred without recommendation or referred with reservation, as the case may be. So that's how it'll show to the full commission, and then co-chairs Faith and Catherine can certainly speak to that and allow, just summarize that, and then individual members would of course be able to speak to their feelings as well.
So I would word it, is there strong opposition to referring the draft transition plan with reservations on F5 to the full PAC for their consideration? Is there general agreement around referring the draft transition plan with reservations on F5 to the full PAC for their consideration? and I see jazz hands and agreement. There is consensus, and this is referred. Congratulations. So we can now move to the next steps. And I will invite staff to bring us into next steps.
Actually, I think that's co-chairs.
Co-chairs, I apologize, co-chairs.
Congratulations. We're referring a document. I want to thank you everyone for the discussion. Thank you for speaking freely to disagree or push back. So a recap is we just referred sections B through F with some reservations in F5. We need to send over the definitions and the timeline, which we co-chairs will work on. I acknowledge Commissioner Dan that you sent over edits, which we will incorporate. So look forward to that before we present it to the full commission. So those are the next steps from us. Catherine, do you have anything to add?
I don't, thank you.
Fantastic, everyone. Okay, garden plot recap. Staff, do you have anything to go into the garden plot?
Yes, so there is the section that was F3B, which has the which had to do with the PRB member seat and that's assigned to the CRC, and that was placed in the garden plot. And that's the only thing I have. I'll just add in my congratulations to the subcommittee and thank you for taking on a very heavy lift. Thank you.
Yes, Corinne, do you have anything to go in the garden plot?
I do not. Thanks for asking.
Thank you. Co-chairs, do you have anything to go in the garden plot?
Not for me.
Okay, very good. We are going to go ahead and conclude this meeting. And so I would like to, again, remind people that you can submit advanced public comment to the Police Accountability Commission via web form, voicemail, or postal mail. I want to thank each and every one of you today for your contributions. You did a fantastic job referring this document. And I want to thank the people who attended in our audience today. And if you're not already signed up, please sign up for emails for the for updates. So we will not be meeting tomorrow. We will be meeting on Thursday. And I just want to say again, thank you. And we're going to adjourn. Oh, and then we're having a community meeting tomorrow at 11:30 to 1:30, and that information is on the website. And our meeting is now adjourned at 9:08 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Great work, everyone.